a few things and just address some elephant in the room issues, and then you could just read them off to me, and then everybody can hear the question, and I can just respond
Sure.
to the question. So two things I'll just address really quick.
I just want to let everyone know that this is being recorded, just to let everyone know.
Thank you.
Okay.
So two things. Number one, in response to some of the protests and the national kind of anti-police rhetoric, there were some changes that San Jose PD did enact several weeks ago. And I just want to address that because that's usually a top question, and I might as well just get it out of the way now.
Sure.
There's a program called Don't Wait for the 8. And basically that was 8 different policies nationally that basically the population said, police departments, you need to at least at minimum enact these policies. Well, so you guys know, the San Jose Police Department for numerous years already had these policies in place. I know Richard worked for the fire department, and he can attest that in general, San Jose is pretty proactive and very progressive when it comes to national policies. I actually went to the FBI Academy, graduated from there, and I could tell you on the East Coast, and no offense to you folks that are from the East Coast, we're pretty progressive when it comes to policies. So the first thing is banning chokeholds and strangleholds. So we actually got rid of that in 2016. We never allowed it, except if you're about to die yourself. So if you have to protect yourself because you are about to die, we allow chokeholds. Other than that, we never had it. Requiring de-escalation tactics. So that's basically tactical conduct where when we encounter a potential force situation, we are asked to de-escalate by talking to the person or using non-lethal weapons. We've been doing that since 2016. Number 3, warning before shooting someone. Well, we've always warned someone before we shoot someone, except if we're about to die ourselves. And so where this comes to play is many times you'll see there's a hostage barricade system where we call in tactical negotiators. We all wear body-worn cameras, and so you'll see a lot of times where we are required to verbally talk to a person and talk down the situation, including everybody going through a 40-hour, what they call crisis intervention training. Number 4, using alternatives before shooting. So we've been doing that. That basically means that before imminent danger, before we're supposed to die, we have to use other force options. Hands, we have a taser, we have a baton, we carry mace. And so those are things that we can use in lieu of using force. We've always had it. Duty to intervene. That basically means that if we see somebody using force, we're supposed to intervene and say, hold on, buddy, and pull them off, or we have to report it. We've always had that in place. Shooting at moving vehicles. We've actually had this since 2007. So we are not allowed to shoot at moving vehicles unless, again, they're about to kill us. So even if a vehicle is coming at us, we are actually required per the duty manual to jump out of the way before it hits us. But if we can't jump out of the way or move it out of the way, then we're allowed to shoot. So if the car's going away from us or going by us, we don't shoot at the vehicle. Number 7 is establishment of a force continuum. Force options are directly related to facts and circumstances encountered by the officer. So what they're saying here is that if the force changes or goes a different direction, then we don't always have to respond to deadly force. So we have to constantly evaluate, okay, what is the force? What is the threat to us? That's what that means. We've always had it. And last of all things, reporting all uses of force. We've always had that in place for San Jose PD. Anytime we use force, we have to write a report. And as recently, I think as 2 years ago, we actually post that stuff online. And so you can actually pull up we hired a consulting firm and we post our use of force stuff online. So that's kind of the national 8, why wait for the 8? That was what is going on nationally. That's what you see in Washington, D.C., trying to impose this on some departments because not all departments have this. We've always had it. And this is in addition to a whole bunch of other things that we do. But I just want to address that really quick, because usually one of the top questions I get is, well, what are you doing about things from a national standpoint? Lastly, Facebook. So I know that we've been all over the news regarding internal racism. I really can't comment a whole lot on the Facebook and some of the other articles you've seen, but I can say after 27 years, I truly do not believe our police department is a racist organization. I think that in as liberal as the Bay Area is, if we were, I think we would have been caught a long time ago. I'm not denying the fact that could we have some racist individuals within the organization. I don't think anybody is ever going to deny that, right? Because we have over 1,000 police officers. Could one or two be racist? You can't be naive to think that maybe internally they are. And those are the ones we tend to weed out and catch those folks. And that's exactly what we're doing now. It usually somehow comes out. But to say we're all racist, there's no way in heck we would have survived this long. And I think we would have actually had a federal consent decree by now, which basically means the federal government would have came in a long time ago and said, San Jose PD, you guys are a bunch of racist thugs. So I really honestly can say that from the bottom of my heart. Again, I'm not saying that every single person is perfect. I'm admittedly saying, yes. Are there racist people in law enforcement? Yes. Do we probably have some at San Jose PD? Maybe. Okay, I'm not denying it. And I think over time, these people get weeded out. So that's all I can comment on the Facebook thing. It wasn't a secret Facebook. It was basically a police department Facebook, not sanctioned by the department, but founded by police department members going way back over 10 years ago. And basically it was a forum for officers just to chime in via Facebook and comment, whatever the daily happening happens to be. And so that's actually been in existence for a long time. And it's basically sworn police officers from San Jose PD and retired folks. And I think they had well over 900 people in that Facebook. And so it wasn't a secret kind of a racist forum. It was just a police officer forum where people could just speak openly. And hey, people made bad comments. It's being addressed. And so that's all I can really comment on that. But those are the two big ones I just wanted to get out of the way, because I know it's basically been all over the news. All right, now you can ask me questions.
All right, okay. I'm gonna read the questions. So the first one says, my wife works at one of the restaurants in the little strip mall at First and Tasman. Before the SIP stayed in place, there were car break-ins on a regular basis. What has SJPD and the Sheriff's Department done to address this? They mention it because the Sheriff's Department, they mentioned the Sheriff's Department because their office is just down the street and they are responsible for the light rail.
So a couple things before the shelter in place. I'm not sure how often our crime prevention folks visited your organization. So when I say crime prevention, do you know what that is? It's a non-sworn civilian staff that come out and do burglary prevention methods. Have you guys had them?
No.
Nope. Okay, so I'll add that to my notes. So I oversee 12 gals that run a crime prevention group. They go to different organizations and businesses and talk about, here's ways to prevent crime. It can't always be a law enforcement solution. It actually takes also people to take on methods, whether it be lighting, security, or different preventive measures. So specifically at First and Tasman, I think there's a Target right there near there, or no, First and Tasman, but south of that.
That's near the Samsung building?
Yeah, near the Samsung building. So my suggestion is that business association in that area really should reach out, have them contact me. I can actually set up a business watch, and I have 2 gals that will come out and give tips on how to prevent car burglaries. From a law enforcement standpoint, it's impossible for us to go there every single minute, every single hour. Basically, they will teach that lock your stuff in the cars, don't leave your bags out, have higher security. If it's on private property, we basically teach that company that they're just going to have to hire more security. As far as patrols, in your northern section, you only have 1 or 2 officers that cover that whole northern section, and that's just a staffing issue, so they can only do so much.
Can you
so that is my suggestion.
Can you tell us what the northern section is defined by?
Yeah, sorry about that. So because I have everything from downtown, I would consider everything probably north of Montague Expressway. Everything going way north up to Alviso would be kind of considered the northern section. Okay. I think you only have 2 officers, or 1, if that, depending on the staffing levels per shift.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean other officers can't come over there to help out, but
Right.
whenever it comes to car burglaries, that's the suggestion that I give is there's just no way that we're going to be there every minute.
Okay, so along the same line, it's the question is, has SJPD engaged with the Irvine company or the other apartment management companies to address car break-ins and thefts happening in their complexes?
Not that I know of, and I encourage them to reach out to me. So give them my email address.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, so that's something for Irvine to do?
Yes.
Okay.
There's just no way for us to reach out to every single complex. We only have 2 gals assigned to your area.
Okay.
And so they are booked almost 5 days a week because they go to your schools, your community captain, your neighborhood watch captain meetings. And we have what we call a business watch. So like at Target, for example, at 1st and 237, they actually organize a business watch meeting of all the businesses in that area. They host it once a month and they go over like I give crime stats, and then they'll ask, what can we do better? And then the gals will go over there and look at the area and give suggestions. I would suggest they reach out to me.
Oh, do you know who those 2 ladies are that does that?
Yeah, well, it rotates. So right now we have Monica Ruida. I don't know if you met her.
No.
And Mimi Lee. I don't think you guys have met them.
Those
they do a great job.
No, they're civilians.
Oh, they're civilians.
They're civilians. So what they do is I go with them and they give a 1-hour prep. So let's say these apartments are saying, hey, we're having tons and tons of break-ins. What are you going to do about it? So what they do is they'll say what you said. We'll put it back on you and say, well, we can't be everywhere, but here's suggestions on what to do to prevent the break-ins.
Okay.
Whether it be lighting or because they'll look at your area and they'll go, well, that's obvious. You have no lights there. You need to get a hold of the complex and put some lights there. Or they'll say, do you have hired security? You can't rely on San Jose PD. You need to have some hired security. They'll give suggestions like that.
Okay. And then just sticking with the apartments, there have been rumors in the past of prostitutions in the apartment complexes. Where do you go to have someone look into that? Now, so a couple of years ago, there was actually a murder that took place in Elon, and that was in conjunction with the prostitution ring. And I happened to be on next door, and this person was venting and saying, I'm so grateful I'm leaving North Park. And they mentioned that one of the reasons they couldn't wait to leave is because they were sick of the prostitution ring that was in the Pines apartment complex. And it was like, if you know, why aren't you telling someone? And so I say it's a rumor because they were venting, but there's very little. I mean, you've got like 3,000 units and there's no like policing within 3,000 units or anything like that. So no one really watches anything. So I don't know if you guys have heard of these rumors or how you address them, or who do you go to even look into it?
So great question. So let me give you a little history. So when San Jose PD lost our 500 officers back in 2012 due to the Measure B, which is the retirement, what they did is reform, so everybody left San Jose PD. So we were at about almost 1,500 officers in 2012, and we dropped down to about 700 or 800. We're back to about 1,100. When that occurred, we had to cut out our kind of non-emergency response units, and one of them was our vice prostitution unit, because from a department standpoint, and again, don't be offended by me saying this, but a lot of it was consensual contacts, right? People were going there because they wanted to sleep with a prostitute. So we looked at it, I'm not saying they weren't victims, but we looked at it as not a crime where someone is really randomly getting hurt. That was one of the units that we cut. We still don't have that unit. But what we do is we have our street crimes unit that will collaterally look at street level prostitution. But what those folks are doing is they're in regular uniform and plain clothes. They can't infiltrate what happened over the internet age is these secret prostitution rings. So street level, we're trying to curb that as much as possible. You don't see it as much in San Jose compared to other cities. Still exists, but not as much. So what a lot of people did with the internet, and that one was actually in conjunction, I think, with some other cases down in Orange County and Irvine. It was all kind of connected.
It was big.
It's a lot. Yes. And a lot of these companies now realize, well, if I'm just not on the street and in a house, then San Jose PD or the police departments can't catch me. So California statewide, what was happening is these kind of prostitution rings figured out, well, if I rent a house or buy an apartment, I'll run my prostitution through there. I'll buy an expensive area. My clients tend to be well dressed. Nobody will figure it out. And that's exactly what was happening.
Right.
They're buying or renting houses in very nice neighborhoods, and basically they're running these prostitution rings. So to answer your question, if you suspect it, we ask you to call it in. I will then forward it over to our street crimes unit. They will look into it. We have a part-time kind of vice prostitution ring, but they deal with gambling, prostitution, and a few other units. If it is prolific, they will actually work with the federal government and other agencies to try and see if that's something they can work. But from a department standpoint, that's how we would initially respond, is we will rely on you to call us. But so you know, that's happening all over the city. The problem is we can't find them, right?
Okay.
You'll see sporadically, oh, they arrested this folks, or we arrested these folks. But that's because we had probably like a snitch, in a sense, come forward who got wronged, and basically will say, hey, I know this prostitution ring. I can prove it to you. Go between the hours of 7 and 9. You know, this is what's occurring, and then we can try and work it. But that is a national trend, just so you know, that everybody is kind of doing it behind closed doors now, because the streetwalkers is kind of a thing of the 70s and 80s.
Right. You want to ask that question?
Okay, so Robin posted a question. He said he would be interested to hear some general crime statistics for our area, if you have them.
Sure. Yes, I do. And they're pretty low. So what I did was I did one crime stats of, I did a quarter mile from your address there on River Oaks, and there was only a total of 10 incidences in the last 60 days. And those 10 incidences I ran were what we consider are violent or part 1 crimes. So burglaries, looks like you had a robbery and a vehicle burglary. That's a quarter mile radius of your location. And so it wasn't a whole lot. Then I also did one by the post office, because I saw some questions about the post office. And I ran a stat there.
Alviso post office has been robbed 5 times of mail.
Yeah, so the thing about Alviso is because it's the U.S. federal government, they don't always report to San Jose PD.
You mean the post office, not Alviso, but the post office.
Right.
Okay.
So the U.S. Post Office is not going to, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I ran a real quick check, and I did a same thing, a quarter mile radius of the actual Alviso post office on Taylor Street right there, and Gold. And so you had a total of 7 incidences in the last 60 days. So you had, looks like you had some assaults over off of First Street, Michigan Avenue, and Archer. You had a car burglary over off of Sunrise, that's south of Moffett, you know, on the other side of the river there, or creek. A car burglary, and you had 2 more burglaries. So those look like apartment complexes right there. So that's over a 60-day period. You only had a total of 4, 5, 6, 7 total.
So quarter mile is a little bit small for this area, because the way the apartment complexes are stacked, and then we have this area here that's between I'll say Zanker and Montague, where River Oaks kind of does this kind of J kind of shape, and then other people are from the North Park area, which is up on First Street. We have a whole bunch of apartments that are up there as well. And I know that when I look on Nextdoor, there are a lot of people who are saying, you know, my motorbike was stolen, my car. Actually, they actually make me laugh, because a lot of them are like, I can't believe it. I left my phone and my laptop in my car and it's gone. Yeah. I don't know where these people came from that they could leave their laptop and their phone in their car.
So a couple years ago, we had a police officer come out. And he said that our crime was very high in North San Jose. So in general, in North San Jose, I guess it's gotten a little bit better.
100, totally better. I'm looking at,
Okay.
so I actually had our crime analysis unit run April to April 30 and May 1 to May 30 crime stats.
Okay.
And they actually gave me a map. And this information, I believe, is also on our website. So if you go to the sjpd.org website and you see there's a link on there about the crimereports.com, and you can kind of run your own analysis.
Okay.
And you can see the different reports, and you can put in a radius. But that section up in your area, I'm looking at it, there's not a lot. No, not it. Most of it's down towards Montague, way south of Montague.
Okay.
Brokaw Avenue.
Oh,
you have one or two off of Brennan.
oh yeah, way down there.
Yeah, you don't have a whole lot.
Okay. So
so unless they're not reporting it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to go in the order. I might be jumping back and forth. We covered robberies and vehicle thefts. So it says, will the police department address noise complaints? During lockdown, noise levels have increased as some neighbors turn up their music and play at all hours, and sometimes have get-togethers with loud talking after 10 p.m. I guess at this point we should ask, what is the phone number to call if you have a non-emergency? Because you know some of these things are not 911 emergencies.
408-277-8900. 408-277-8900.
Okay.
So as you guys know, remember we used to have 311?
Right.
So 311 is an alternative. City auditor said we were inefficient. They got rid of it. So now if you call 311, it's the general city information line.
Oh, okay.
So if you can still call 311, but what happens is it's going to cover everything from flooding and down power lines, and then you have to go through the phone tree.
Right.
And eventually you'll get to the police, you click it, it'll go. But if you call the number I just gave you, that was the old 311 number. So it goes straight to the police department.
Okay.
So noise complaints.
Yeah. So we will go to noise complaints. It just depends on the priority of the call.
Okay.
So we prioritize our calls. And so the number one complaint is I call and you guys don't come out for 2.5 hours. Well, it's prioritized. And so if it's an apartment complex, we put it back onto the apartment complex security or management.
Okay.
So basically when we do our speeches, we tell the complex, look, you guys need to have a number that these folks can call. I know they're probably, most of them own their apartment. It's not like an apartment, but they own it. You have to have some type of HOA association that they're paying into, that you're going to have to hire security.
Well, to be honest, to be honest with you, we've got over 8,000 units that came in the last 5 years.
Apartments. And
they were all apartments. We're only, for sale ownership, we're only about 900 people. And so 8,000 of them are apartments that just came in the last 5 years. And so, and that doesn't include the other 3 established apartments that were here about 30 years ago. So the complaints are going to be from all the apartment people.
Those complexes need to figure out a security plan, because we will come to them. But it's going to be a very slow response.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. So yes, we can come to them.
Sure.
Yes, they can call it in, but it's going to be a slow response.
Okay, so it says we have numerous non-Alviso people living in SUVs, etc., on Alviso streets, Los Esteros, Spreckles, Moffett, and El Dorado. We need help in removing the trash from the ditches on the Moffett streets because we have no storm drains or sidewalks on those streets.
So today, I actually sent some CSOs out to that area, Spreckles, Estrada, I think, El Dorado. And if you look, you'll see orange tags on them. So they actually went out and tagged a few of them today. And I think one of them, there's a truck that's hooked to a trailer that's parked in the empty lot. So we're having a patrol officer go contact them. So a couple things on the abandoned vehicles. So due to COVID, and I'm on the tow hearing committee. One of the advantages of me being out here in patrols, I'm on like every committee. So I'm on the tow one, the fireworks committee. I'm on every committee you can think of. So the tow code enforcement went on, what do you call it? They're like on break because of COVID. So they're not towing cars. That's why you don't see the parking compliance folks out. And so due to their union rules, Richard knows about all this stuff. They felt that it is unsafe for them to go work. And that's why I know we're recorded. So I'm on that committee. So they were actually pulled from working. And so there was no parking enforcement, zero. And actually the tow companies complained because they weren't towing cars. That only left us and CSOs, community service officers. So we're just going to rely on you letting us know. They are starting to come back, but they're only going to the more priority parking issues where it's an actual public safety hazard, where there's 3 wheels on it, it's up on blocks, and there's oil leaking. But the standard marking of abandoned vehicles has not started. So today I did send a CSO out to mark a couple of those vehicles. They'll go back in a couple of days and tow them away. And then we had a patrol officer go out and contact the person with the trailer.
Okay,
that's kind of the problem we have. The last thing is I do notice, and I know it's a pain, so a lot of the officers will push these homeless folks that are parked in a lot of residential streets and tell them to get lost. And so what happens is, you know where they get lost? Unfortunately, they go north 12 ESO because they go to where there's less population. And so they will go to some of these abandoned streets. So we get the same complaints in other areas, and basically our officers go say, get out of here, go somewhere else. And you already know there's a homeless problem in San Jose with no housing. I think some of these empty streets, you guys get stuck with these homeless people.
On the topic of homelessness, we've had a couple of people talk about how they see campfires along the creek. And this is something where I think we don't know who to call, because you see something that, especially now since it's getting hotter and drier, is a potential hazard. And yet we know that the creek is covered by multiple jurisdictions. You have the county, you have the sheriff, you have the water board, you have the Army Corps of Engineer. So, you know, this is a problem. We do have a lot of homeless in the creek. So who should we call if we see something like campfires, or I think there was an actual fire that broke out a couple weeks ago. So who are we supposed to call?
So anything to do with the homeless concerns, and I have tons of meetings with them, is the Encampment Response and Abatement Information Line. That's 408-975-1440. That's 408-975-1440. This is on the city website, by the way, so that's where I got it from. You can email them at homelessconcerns@sanjoseca.gov. That's one word, homelessconcerns@sanjoseca.gov, sanjoseca.gov. Okay, so homelessness. I talked to one of their head directors over there because I oversee the BART station down south of you guys, so we have the same problem. So this is what she said. So right now, due to COVID, they are also been put on leave. But here's a standard response. So they're, unlike Alameda County and some of the other counties, Santa Clara County does not have an active reactive homeless response team. So in other words, they don't have a team of people. They're all reactive. They prioritize the complaints, and then they go out with their resources, and they either offer the folks resources or see if there's an alternative for them to go somewhere else. That's just the way our county is. So that's point blank the answer, straight from one of the head directors, because I had a meeting with Bart and that was their exact question. But what they will do is, if you call and report it, they'll add it to their list and they will eventually go out. If they deem it to be an actual camp and they don't go, they do what you call an abatement process. Now the problem is the city of San Jose has a moratorium on evictions. But this doesn't count because they're not paying rent. So it was a little confusing. People weren't calling in. You can call them. They'll go out and eventually they'll what they call abate them. Basically, they will give them a notice, a 3-day notice, and say, you need to leave this area. And that's how we're dealing with the homeless. Here's the problem. They just end up going somewhere else, like a mile away. They set up camp and they just start all over again and do the exact same thing. We don't really have a whole lot of resources for these folks to go to.
So I think the main issue is fires. They're worried about fires starting.
They do the same thing. It's all over.
So are you saying that if we see fires, all we can do is just say,
Well,
say, you know, there's a homeless issue, or what do we do if we see fires?
well, if it's a fire out of control, then that's,
We'll
but I
call
think
the
you're
fire
talking about
department.
like actual campfire, like they're
Yeah,
literally
they're
camping.
campfires, but they're in
Yeah.
the brush. There's nothing to do
Yeah.
about campfires. Okay.
So so yeah, you just have to report it as a homeless concern. Now, I did reach out to the park ranger program, and we have a very small park ranger program in San Jose. And what they told me is, and again, this is on the city website, they said when you report it, you have to actually say where it's at. So their response to me was, we will go out if it is in our jurisdiction. But the problem is, and you nailed it on the dot, it crosses over with the federal government, the federal agency, and the county. So what they told me is, and I don't have their exact number, is if you go to the City of San Jose website and look up the park rangers,
Okay.
and they actually emailed me, but it doesn't have their email address on here. So supervising park ranger works out of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. You report it like the homeless response team.
Okay.
Add it to their list, and they will go out.
Okay.
So it's not helping. I know it's not helping a whole lot.
Interject, Gene and Captain Kim, may I interject?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is 33 years of experience. If you see smoke in Coyote Creek and so on, the water district has no jurisdiction. The PD would just report it. You call the fire department. You just call communications, you know, your 911, and you say who you are, and here's the location. Fire today will accelerate. It always has. It's a dry area. Don't hesitate. Say who you are, your address, and you see smoke from this area. Let the fire department make that decision.
Okay.
Because by the time you fool around, that accelerates, you'll burn the town down.
Right.
I've been through it, I understand it. So just tell people it's not a homeless issue. It's a fire. It's smoke. And it should not be. That's period.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
And Richard is right. If you use the way he worded it, you're not lying. You will actually get a fire department response.
Yeah. No, we had
Richard is right.
smoke. It was smoke and smell and everything. We had to shut our windows. It was just kind of scary.
Yeah.
But they will take action. They will do something. They don't have any lunch code. They don't have no dinner codes. They were going to respond. They'll make the decision. But you can't hesitate today. We just had one up where I live in this area and accelerated going east so bad. I was out with my shovel trying to help out until the fire department did a great job. But they're only as good as we give them good communications and location. Let them make the decision and save lives and property.
Okay, thank you.
That'll work. Thank you, Richard. I didn't want to throw down the fire department without at least a representative.
Yeah.
You can call that.
You're doing a great job, and we've got to make sure that they're on the ball, and they will be. You got remember, you got station 25, you got 29,
right there.
and you got station 5. They're there within 2-3 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so one person was concerned about the coyotes. They said and/or foxes. I don't think we have foxes. I think they're just coyotes roaming around on the levee trail and in the open fields, like where the fruit stand is. So I think that's just nature coming back after we leave.
So I contacted the park ranger, and so again, I'm sorry I don't have their direct line, but I emailed one of their supervisors. This is what they said: foxes and coyotes are very common along the various creeks in the city. They usually keep to themselves and are active in the evenings and early mornings. There are some occasional conflicts with humans when people leave out pet food, open trash cans, loose chickens in the yard, or unharvested fruit from the yard trees. I have attached a flyer, Fish and Wildlife, a flyer from Fish and Wildlife, providing and helping to educate the public on living with their wild neighbors. It's designed for coyotes, but works for foxes too. So I can email you this. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See it. It's kind of like a form that.
Yeah. No, I just see the police department. It won't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. You're back.
So I'll email you this form. So basically, what it is it's like a flyer that tells you everything I just told you, and it just gives you some wildlife numbers.
Okay, we'll put that on our. We'll put that on the RONA website. All right. So the last one is that there have been people riding around on bikes looking for packages, and again, this is also kind of a homeless issue about people who have been, so in our complex, we actually had some homeless people sleeping by the dumpster. And then when they got up, they were screaming and yelling and carrying on. And I contacted my HOA because I didn't know who else to contact, because I knew it wasn't a 911 emergency. We don't actually have security. I just said, I don't know who to contact regarding this. One person was wandering around wearing shorts and a blanket and no shoes or anything, and just, you know, sounded like they were in a lot of distress. But the main concern is we definitely had some people who were going around looking for packages. So, you know, you're not actually seeing them steal actively, but you know what they're doing because packages go missing, and everyone will see, you know, they'll say their doorbell or whatever. So is this something that you call? I mean, is it suspicious activity? Who do you call? The police?
I call it in. Yep.
Okay.
Call it in. And depending on the situation, you can call 911. If it's screaming and yelling and you think there's a fight or someone's in distress, you can call 911. If you think it's just someone that's literally casing the area, going from house to house, back and forth, call the non-emergency number, the 408-277-8900 number, and we call it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite a few people in our complex noticed the activity that they were doing, and they didn't know what to do or take pictures. You know, they took some pictures.
And they saw them in other complexes too.
Yeah. I noticed a lot of folks will post it on Nextdoor and say, hey, look out for this person, look out for that.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do, but you can call it in. And this is all over the city. And I think you guys already know that this is happening citywide.
Yeah.
They've figured out that everybody's at home and all they do is order everything online because the stores are closed.
Right.
So they know for a fact that everybody's doing their shopping online.
Right.
It's just a fact, right? Because look at even today, I think they just did another shelter-in-place order and they closed all the restaurants and everything.
Right.
So that's why that's occurring.
Okay. So have we asked all the questions?
Yeah, we've asked all the questions that are here.
Yes.
And we've only had the one question come in. Are there any other questions?
Anybody else want to ask questions?
I put down that you guys can unmute yourselves. I muted everyone, but now you can all unmute yourselves if you want to unmute yourselves.
So
if
one
you
thing
have
I
any
was going
questions,
to ask Jean, this is Eamon, and you know, is about because it didn't come up so far, is about fireworks.
Oh yes.
I'm hearing a lot of fireworks, and I'm concerned about fires because of fireworks.
Great question. So I'm on that fireworks committee. So this Saturday and overall, so here's the city's response to fireworks. We don't have the staffing to go on the fireworks. The Muni Code says that we have to be able to see them commit a violation and then we can cite them. By the time we get to the call, usually they're gone, right? They see the police coming from a mile away or they run. So we're not going to chase someone for a nonviolent crime. As you know, that's a national trend. So we're not forcing confrontations with nonviolent crimes. So the fire department and code enforcement created this online portal where we're putting it back on the community and saying, if you see it, report it. And so let me see if I have that information. And basically what they want you to do is, if you get there and let's say it's coming from a house, but you don't see them doing it, or even if you see them doing it, they want you to take a picture and then you upload it to their online reporting tool, and then code enforcement will come back and cite the owner for hosting any type of fireworks displays, even if you didn't see it. At minimum, they'll send them a warning letter and say to the homeowner, hey, you've been reported on this online reporting tool and you've been warned. And then there's fines associated to that. I can email Eugene the actual link that has that and talks about the fines and a flyer. And that is the city's response to fireworks.
Okay.
As you know, this Saturday, there's no downtown fireworks show, nor is there one at Lake Almaden. We know, and it was actually in the paper, that the safe and sane fireworks from the boarding counties have doubled. And so we know more people are going to have backyard barbecues and street parties, etc. And we're going to just do our best to try and deal with it. But I think it's going to happen citywide.
Right.
And if it's really bad, we'll respond. But we get quite a few calls on fireworks, and so it's just one of those things.
Right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I actually had one,
Okay.
kind of a follow-up to the car break-ins that you touched upon earlier. And I know it's a tricky subject. You know, you're always going to be too late, and it's the apartment complexes. I was just wondering if you have any further thoughts. Kind of, we had our car broken into, and we didn't have anything in the car. They just smashed the window and kind of looked through things, but we didn't actually there wasn't anything valuable in there, so they didn't take anything. And what seems to be happening is that they kind of take one area of the parking garage, smash 20 cars, grab everything they can, leave, and then next night they use a different part of the area, like a different parking garage, or just a different area of the same parking garage, and kind of move around. And kind of the issue that we have is, yes, Irvine kind of puts out this nice pamphlets, yes, don't leave anything in your car, and lock your car and whatever, but they don't really seem to have an interest in doing anything more. And they do have security guards a little bit, but they can't be everywhere either. And I think for Irvine, it's like, yeah, they're not losing enough money over this that they would hire more security or put video cameras up. Because the loss is always to the individual renter. And it's kind of bad for everyone, but nobody really has a way to do anything, it seems to me. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts.
It's hard to prevent. So this is happening in Barry Red. We actually have a burglary unit that works in conjunction, and we actually got some grant money from Representative Canton Chu to try and attack it. But we don't have officers to go out, so we did form a small burglary unit that they work with the other cities and go undercover. They mostly go after the big burglary rings, the ones that are. We had one in the paper where they're actually fencing $100,000 worth of items. And then the other half is advertising. So it's tough with everybody at home. We just can't be everywhere. And it's not only in your complex, it's down in Willow Glen and Almaden and West San Jose, it's everywhere.
Right.
So I know it's like, well, why don't you just put a police car there then? Well,
no, you can't.
we only have like 2 police cars or 1 or 2 in the whole entire northern section. And one domestic call or one violent call takes 2 officers. They're now tied up for 3 or 4 hours on that call. So the problem is there could be many hours where there's actually no police officers in your area, right? Because they're actually on a call. And so, it's a crime of opportunity.
I do see when there is something going on, you come out in force, and a couple of instances where we had 4 or 5 patrol cars here. Is there any way we can put more pressure on Irvine? I think it is their responsibility, it's their building, but we as individual renters and even people trying to band together on next door, we don't really get anywhere, it seems like.
Reach out to Irvine and just say, hey, I went to this meeting and the captain said that, we should promote a crime prevention meeting and invite me and invite the crime prevention staff, and we'll come out there. And you'll see when we give the presentation, have an Irvine representative there, we'll put it back onto them and say, here's some things you guys need to do. We did that with the First Street Business Association up by Target and said, this is going to have to fall back on you taking care of your folks.
Right.
And so it seems to work a little bit, but you're right. The burglaries are going to continue, and it's just tough to handle. And they come from all over the place.
Yeah.
So how many police officers do you have, did you say, in the city of San Jose?
We have almost 1,100 police officers, but
Okay.
of that, I think only about 1,000 or maybe 890 are actually on the street. And of that 890 that are like street ready in uniform, only about 400 or 500 are actually in patrol. The rest are either in the detective bureau, the SWAT team, the traffic unit, the other units. So typically we used to have about 600 back in the 90s when I was a motorcycle officer. That includes special operations, but we're down to maybe around 400. So for example, when I was in motors in the mid 90s, we had 60 motorcycle officers. We drove the cool Kawasaki's. You probably remember, if you guys were around, we used to set up on radar everywhere.
I got caught.
We have, oh, sorry.
No mustache.
Yeah. We have 6 motor officers now. That was one of the units that we cut out after the retirement reform, because it was a nonviolent crime, and so we cut that out.
Right. So, so how is that spread out throughout San Jose? The around 600 you said?
About 400.
400. How's that spread out throughout San Jose?
They go based on calls for service. So what they'll do is they'll take 911 data and reports data, and we send officers where the most calls for service and data is. That's how we spread it out.
Okay.
So certain areas are definitely going to have more police officers than other areas. It's based on calls for service.
Okay.
Your area doesn't have a whole lot of calls for service.
Right.
It's a large area. I think what happens is things happen. I think people just don't call it in. A lot of it's just insurance, and they just notify their insurance, pay the deductible, and they just move on.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had our car, we left our garage door open, and so somebody came in and stole a bunch of stuff and broke into the car and stole stuff in the car. And I remember this was like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. We called and they're like, we don't come out for that. You just have to go online and fill out a report. So I think everybody knows that now, that, you just go online and fill out a report if something gets stolen.
Yeah. And they're really pushing now for more community service officers. So you could watch city council meetings. So we're actually we have about 60 community service officers. So they're the ones that wear the baby blue uniform, drive the white cars. They just take reports. So we have around 50 or 60. We just hired 5 more. They actually gave us funding for that because it's kind of the whole feeling of, we really just need non-law enforcement. Let's get the community service officers just to take reports, which is working because that's what most people want.
Right.
So we're increasing that. But yeah, they're really just trying to prioritize the calls with the limited staffing.
Right.
Is there anything is there any more questions first?
There's a comment.
Sure.
Mr. Santos. Yeah. First of all, to Gene, thank you for having this meeting.
You're welcome.
I know it's hard to have them, but this is good. To Captain Kihmm and his officers, we wish you nothing but safety out there. I can't imagine a society without police. I don't care what the issues are. We support you. And thank you for the service. We all want more visibility. That helps deter crime. But this kind of meeting and communication and collaboration together will be successful. Thanks.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And anything that you received from the questions that we sent to you, and maybe you can email them to me so I will have them also, even though we talked about it and you gave us
any notes you had is what she wants to know. Yeah. Like the flyer and anything else. Like you said, you spoke to the park rangers, those phone numbers.
I could summarize it and just make it in bullets.
That'd be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
this video will be posted online.
Yeah.
And I will probably tag at certain points when certain questions came up so people can, find their answers.
Yeah, this will go on our RONA site.
Zoom is the way to go. I'm telling you.
Know.
Our IT folks actually said that, so we have a corporate account with the city of San Jose for Zoom, because what they're realizing is, although Zoom is not really as personal, they're actually finding more people participate in these type of meetings because people rather just sit in their house.
Right.
That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And they'll come in from their car and everything else.
So I know one thing that we've always commented that we would like to see, and I guess this goes with the community service officers who just come out, is we would like to see more of a presence of, I don't know, we always say we wish there was a station up here or something. And I know San Jose doesn't do substations. They just have the main station. Is there any talk about that about perhaps having small substations in different communities, or are they just always going to stick to a central location?
Great question. So we looked at having substations. So in the 90s, Alviso actually had a place over there off of Richard. What's that street? It was like a old house we turned into a substation. We actually had one in the 90s, but we don't
You're muted,
staff it
Richard.
anymore.
You need to unmute.
It's up there in El Viso. We actually had like a little substation.
It was Chief Lansdowne that got that back in 2002. That was our old city hall. It's a police substation, but unfortunately it's not manned, and we wish it was.
Yeah, and you're right. So we thought of that. So we put one there. We put one over by Story and King. We put one at Oak Ridge Mall. And then we put one over there off of San Tomas Expressway in Williams. So we tried it, but when 2012 hit and we lost our 500 officers, we closed them all. So the only other substation we have, which was funded by a bond measure in South San Jose, is off of Great Oaks and Highway 101, the Monterey Highway. It's a huge one. That was going to house all of Southern Division. It took about 7 years. Right now, we don't even use it other than a training facility because we lost the 500 officers. We don't have enough people to staff it.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where we're at. But great question. So the question is, you know, were we ever centralized? So San Jose was never like the other cities because we were a small city. And Richard, I keep mentioning Richard because I actually met him. He probably doesn't remember, back like in 94, 93, long time ago. Yeah. And what happens is San Jose was a little orchard town, right? Everybody knows that. Well, for those of you not from San Jose. So we weren't a big metropolitan city like Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, San Diego. So we were always centralized. But because of Silicon Valley, you guys already know this, in the 80s, we blossomed and we're just a giant residential. So they never built substations. And actually our crime was very low, right? In the 90s and 80s, we were actually like in the maybe top 15-ish, right around there, safest cities in the nation for our size. So we always stayed central, and so we finally opened one up in South San Jose. But that's kind of the history going back, because we were always just centralized. And it's kind of a weird concept for our size. We just don't.
It works.
Well, it's working now. Yeah, it's kind of weird how everybody comes together at shift change. We'll have 60, 70 officers at one time come get their cars and deploy out. But that's the reason why we were never kind of separated. We were always centralized. But that goes back to history.
But the problem we have is North San Jose is big as most districts, and it should be a district by itself alone. We have enough people, and our size is big as Almaden.
Yep.
Yeah.
District Robert, your area is called District R, phonetically District Robert. You average about 5 officers a shift. So your area covers everything from the Berryessa flea market right there on Berryessa, and one side is past First Street, like by the airport on the west side, and then the east side is 680, and it goes north between 680 and Santa Clara up to El Viso. So you have 5 officers that cover that whole area. So you could have officers go from El Viso all the way to the Berryessa flea market if they need help. That's a long haul.
It
is.
So you don't have a lot of officers, but 5 is more than the average. Most districts only have 4.
Okay. Well, we're going to grow some more. So that's the reason why I was thinking, the mayor wants to see 32,000 units up here. We've got 8,000, and then he's pushing for another 8,000 really quickly. So that'd be 16. And so I'm thinking we need a substation up here eventually, because we're going to be a whole town into itself.
Yeah. You have the BART station now too.
Exactly.
At Berryessa, which we're staffing. I think the way they got the one in the South San Jose was a bond measure. So you'll have to work with your councilmen.
Okay.
That's how they got that one. Is they put it on the ballot, the voters voted for it, and it passed. It took several years, and you're going to need a strong council member to really push that forward. But that's probably the best way to really get a substation. Yeah, because the city's not going to, to be honest, the city's not going to suddenly go, yep, let's build a substation out there. It's the reality of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you predict that with the new BART station coming up, an increase in crime in the area?
A little bit. So right now they're only at 10% ridership. So we're expecting 15 to 20,000 people a day. They're only at about less than 1,000 a day.
Okay.
But yes, so we actually assigned, so VTA actually runs that station. They're paying for 50% of our salary out there. So we have 2 officers a shift in that BART area. but VTA is actually paying for one of them, so we funded the other half. And that was our response to try and keep the crime down, is having patrol officers patrol that station.
Sure.
We got funding from VTA. That's the reason
Okay.
why we're there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I really appreciate you, taking the time to talk with us. And, that's, anybody else got any questions? Otherwise, we're going to just go ahead and close out.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cap.
Sorry,
Okay.
it
Thank
took
you
so
very
long.
much. Bye-bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.